here we go. It's the Monday Club, first of 2024, and the first one in a while. Jonathan, Happy New Year, son. How are you?
Oh, Happy New Year to you. Oh, I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. I'm all good. You already seem like you're in a cheeky mood tonight. I'm
in a very mischievous mood.
Oh, I like that, mate. I like that. Just getting through the last of the New Year, Christmas, New Year, festive period, sweeties. Celebrations, mate.
Celebrations, good choice.
I don't think so. No, I think I'm more of a miniature heroes, man. What do you think?
No, I think I'd eat more of the celebrations, to be fair. The bounties and the Snickers can go. They can find a new home. They're the ugly sisters of the celebrations family. But outside of that, I think the rest are fairly solid.
Don't mind a bounty.
You wouldn't mind a bounty, because you like to be different.
I know. Did you put on any weight over the festive period, eating loads of sweeties or that? I weighed myself for the weekend. I'm the exact same. Fucking.
No, I was up at 11 stone 2, I think, the last time we
myself.
Stone 2. But it's all natural muscle, that, of course, no body fat whatsoever, I'm sure.
Anyway, we'll do all that good stuff, and then Timmy Bing might be calling what comes next. All that good stuff. Beans, give us a like, give us a share. But as always, you can slag the hair. Remember to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. That's the one. Hit the like button right now. Algorithm. That's what it is. Algorithm. I always forget that word. But aye, if you give us a wee like, that would be good. What else do you need to do? It's been ages since I've been on. I think it's the first time I've been on a week. Share it on your social media if you want. That'd be good. And if you want to become a member like so many of you have, it's $1.99 a month. It does keep the bus on the road, ticking over nicely. Stephen Donohoe, Jim C, Phil McGinley, Charles Smith, Scott Howe. Loads. Pam, where's your membership gone, Pam? We'll need to get you one. We'll get you one, Pam. You're an honorary member. Martin K, David Kelly, loads of members. It's all entirely optional. It's $1.99 a month. Anyway, time for the first one of the year. Take it away.
Well, Russell, over Christmas, I got myself a new t-shirt to celebrate the occasion of returning to the Monday Club. And when we are looking into the future, we are now in January and the transfer window is now open. However, it does appear as if the only thing going out the rule book in Scottish football is the rule book, which Rangers have now decided to take umbrage with decisions that have went against them in the Glasgow Derby just a couple of weeks ago. But they should be paying more attention to the rules, Russell, when it comes to the Glasgow Derby. There's only one rule they need to be aware of, and that is quite simply that Brendan Rodgers owns them in that particular fixture. They have only ever managed one teensy-weensy win against Brendan in his time as a manager over both spells. They should be doing a bit more self-reflection rather than looking further afield towards refereeing decisions when they went on a 74-game streak without conceding a penalty. But the question is, with Brendan Rodgers now owning Rangers once again, will the Celtic board now own up to their mistakes they made in the summer? And will this become the window where Brendan finally gets his men? Or will it become another window of discontent? The football might be off, but the footballing transfer mind games have just begun.
Very good, mate. Very good. The t-shirt is a nice touch. Stands out well, mate. I don't want
doesn't it?
I don't want Tam O'Shanter having wee digs though on the wee fellas pod about me putting my name on t-shirts again. Do you know what I mean? Got right for that before, didn't we?
Oh, we probably did. We probably did.
I'm
we
sure
could do a whole line of these, I think, Russell. I think
yeah. selling for £100 a pop. Okay, well, Estepona boy comes in. He says, all the best for 2024 to everyone in the bus. Same here. Good to have you on, Estepona. I love that. Great name. Great name. Right, let's get into it because obviously the January window, as the tagline sort of suggests, will the window be as slow as the last summer's? That last summer window, I think, we need to be honest, was so disappointing, so emphatically disappointing. And that's been proven more after it's shut than even at the time. And the reason I say that is obviously the links today are Lagabielka leaving, for example, within 4 or 5 months. Rocky coming in a Glasgow derby to play and things like this for his first appearance since August. Do you know what I mean? And you're just going like, that's two of your main expenditure signings. You know what I mean? From the summer, and one's getting flogged already. The other one hadn't started for Celtic in 4 or 5 months, albeit two of those were injured. I accept that, but it wasn't exactly banging down the door to get back in at the team either. The other loan signing at centre back, that wasn't even close to being extended any further than what it had been taken up on. We've seen good things from Palmer. Home looked, I mean, see if you read some of the shite on Celtic Twitter when he's first joined. What a player we've got in our hands here. He looks just the ticket. And it's like, just calm down. Do you know what I mean? He's already out the picture, it seems, altogether. Quan, just a nightmare. It's very, very strange. Very, very strange. I just realised, by the way, my top says brother and yours says, well, Russell. That's quite funny. I just noticed that there when I was.
It's obviously if we plan these things.
I know,
but we don't.
And then there's Phil McGinley saying there's a subliminal message going on here. Celtic transfer talk, Russell in a Man City shirt, the City group link in full flow. Just in the know, mate. ITK. But yeah, I mean, I've listed enough of those players there to give you the rough idea. Yang, fits and starts. If there's anyone else, forgive me for forgetting. And the thing is with that window, that's been now based on what they've been able to bring to the table. Whilst underwhelming on paper, it's now on the pitch where it's really became apparent, or lack of time on the pitch, that window really does need put in the bin. January arrives, and I'm not in a state of panic here before anyone thinks I'm going from one extreme to the other. The window, I was zen, Jonathan, the whole way through the fucking summer, convinced that the good work will get done towards the end. I was wrong. I was let down, and I'm pissed off at that. I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. What also, though, is there's been 4 months since then. So if there was players identified that we didn't get in time at that point, or based on having 4.5 months of watching us play, surely the targets are identified. Surely we know who it is that we're going to be targeting to bring in already. And now we get to 8th of January. It's not squeaky bum time. There's plenty of time left, and we're obviously in a winter shutdown. But let's get it right. We were in the summer transfer window last time around, and Brendan had absolutely all of that to go out and get players that he wanted. He'd been watching the team all season the year before, and every season before that as well, of course. So he knew the pros and cons. Are you remotely concerned at all that there's not been that on the front foot sort of move made that shows there's a bit of impetus in this window? There's no blasé approach. There's no one's going to be lackadaisical this time around. We mean business. And that just could be in the form of some sort of signing that represents something you can associate with being the manager's choice. That's what we would like to see. And I don't know. I think they could have started this window with a wee bit more energy than what we've seen so far.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be concerns after how summer played out. I'm not going to be as much on board this time around as I was the first time in the summer, of thinking definitely players are going to come in. I had enough egg on my face in the summer. You could have probably made an omelette out of it, but I'm not willing to do that this time around. I think it's going to be a trickier window. They'll hit us with the usual excuses that January isn't the easiest time to bring players in and all that sort of nonsense. I think, again, you're going to be fine. There's going to be comparisons, Russell, going back towards what happened under Ange Postecoglou, because Celtic probably had one of the most successful ever January transfer windows in Ange's first season. And, they did get a couple of players in, I think, already by this time. Last year, I think Alistair Johnston, for example, was already in the building, and he slotted straight back into the first team, So there is those sort of elements that are always going to come around, and we keep finding that there's comparisons being made back to Ange's time at the club, and that's inevitably going to weed itself into transfer business as well. And when Celtic haven't done any business, and we're now on day 8 of January, people are rightly going to be asking questions about what's going on, considering the last couple of years the club have been a bit more proactive by this time of the month. So you're looking at it, and you have to worry about the concerns I have really sit with the board as to whether or not they're actually going to back Brendan. There is concern for me that because the fact we have hit a bit of form in the past few games, that the board maybe think they can go back to being complacent and put their feet up because, Celtic have managed to weather that storm, if you like, and I managed to pull a rabbit out of the hat by winning all of their games that they needed to win up until the winter break. But if you're looking at it, that squad badly needs strengthened, and it badly needs players in that Brendan Rodgers has identified. But I do have concerns as to whether or not they're going to do that. And I'll tell you one thing that I did see, and that does make me think that there's mind games already afoot, is obviously Brendan Rodgers refers to the fact Celtic almost had Declan Rice in his first spell around. That was in the media a few days back. And if I'm looking at that, I'm thinking that's Brendan Rodgers almost throwing a dart at the Celtic board in the sense of, well, I could have had them the first time around if you backed me, and you didn't necessarily back me as much as you could have. I could have had a midfield of Rice and John McGinn, I think is what he could have been saying behind the scenes there. So why am I not getting the chance to build something similar to that this time around? I think that's the first warning shot.
What was the context of the Declan Rice comment? Because I did see that he'd apparently said that. I think I heard it as well. Where did that come from?
Injured. I don't know where.
No. I mean the context of him bringing it up. I don't care about players we didn't get, but what I do care about is what the manager's saying in the present, and what led to that being brought up. Just was that him also like to flip it and be negative? I mean, was that him also alluding to the fact how difficult the January window could be, and that was an example of that? Or what led him to saying it? Because I didn't really hear anything before that, or any sort of lead question that got him to arriving at that bizarre sort of example that he gave, which was years ago.
Yeah, I don't know the full context because it was mainly just put as a headline, I think, on one of the websites, I think like the BBC that had ran with it. So I'm not entirely sure what he'd been asked that led him to give that response, but I would imagine that's Brendan playing a little bit of mind games is what my thoughts are on that, and that he's actually now looking to try and prove a point, perhaps, not just to the board, by the way. I think a lot of Celtic fans question Brendan Rodgers' transfer policy because he didn't have everyone that he brought in being a roaring success by any stretch of the imagination the first time around. I'm sure a lot of people that perhaps are not on the Brendan bus, if you will, would probably turn around and say that transfers in his first spell around were probably one thing that he could have done better on, even with all the success that he had. So perhaps it was mainly just a case that he was trying to prove a point that he had identified somebody that was of real quality that would have improved Celtic at that time. And I think at the same time, it was almost a backhander to the board to remind them that if he's given the money and the resources, this is the type of player he could potentially find this time around again. But I think really we really need to be trying to get somebody in the next few days, certainly by the end of this week, just to kind of ease those concerns that the fans are rightly going to have at the moment. Because make no mistake about it, the title race is far from done and dusted, despite that win at Celtic Park. Rangers are proving that they're going to be difficult opposition in the sense that I think they will beat the opposition teams in the league outside of Celtic pretty regularly, which means we have to be on the ball every week in the league. You've still got 2 derbies left to go. I don't think they were absolutely terrible in the game at Celtic Park. I think they've shown in moments that they could have potentially grabbed something from that game with some of the chances they created. So again, there is warning signs there that if Celtic decide to approach this window in a complacent manner and think just because they've got an elite level manager in at the club who's managed to get the big wins in the big matches when they've came along domestically in the league this season, he'll be able to do that in the second half without further strengthening the squad, I think they'll be in for a rude awakening. There's only so many times you can rely on the players that Brendan Rodgers has before they'll come unstuck. And, you could end up with the whole season exploding in our faces, because we already got a glimpse of it, Russell, before we started getting those wins. Before that Livingston game, there was a lot of unrest, and it's easy to forget about that now on the back of a few wins. But it would only take the results going the other way again for a couple of weeks, and you could find yourself back in that position. And I don't know as well, Russell, this is another point I'll put back to you, is do you think the fact that they've got players like Abada, Hatate coming back from injury, I know Hatate's obviously going off to the Asian Cup fairly soon, but do you think the way they almost went about announcing them as if they were new signings when they came back, does that imply perhaps there won't be that much business done, or is that me reading too much into it as well, do you think?
Well, who knows? I mean, who knows? We've got what our hopes are and what we actually expect from the window are two completely separate things. I think there's a lot of negativity in the live chat tonight about what their expectations are for the window ahead, and we all know the smoke and mirrors that the board tried to play. We've seen it with the non-executive chairman title turning into chairman. Would it surprise you if you've seen Abada like a new signing, Hatate like a new signing? I mean, they were celebrating their comeback before the Rangers game. Stuff like that fucking annoys me. Do you know what I mean? Because you're like, right, there's players come back from injury. Neither of them could even start that game. You knew already they weren't going to be starting that game. Yet try to create some sort of social media hype about the return. That's not just to boost the players' morale, is it? That's the trying to, sort of pull the wool over your eyes piss. Do you know what I mean? I think. And yeah, you're right. Hype them up as much as they can and hope they look over there and don't look here where we're spending hee-haw. David Kelly comes in. He says, the truth is we need to spend money because in 9 months' time, CCV, Hatate and O'Reilly will probs all be gone. We keep hearing that we're a business. Well, a well-run business should forward plan. Forward planning we did in the summer. I think for the next 10 years they were hoping that these guys might come good, David. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, there's forward planning and then there's just signing folk that they're just hoping for the best might become a good player at one point in their lifetime, which seems to have been the strategy in the summer. But you're absolutely right in what you're saying. I'm having a bit of a laugh there. I mean, you look at fucking any type of business, they have, especially when it's been the same incumbents in that boardroom. If they are going to stick rigidly to their model, then they must know they're going to be selling players in the future. Do they have adequate replacements there to come in? They don't. Would it be better to get guys in ahead of another potential Champions League campaign next year? We're going for a hat-trick of embarrassments in the Champions League. Is that what we want? 2 points again next time around? You know, that, I mean, it'd just be ridiculous for us not to have one eye on getting Celtic as strongly a position as they can for next summer and the beginning of next season's challenges as well. It does piss me off that the forward planning thing doesn't seem to be the only forward planning they make, realistically, if we're telling the honest truth, is the outgoings. It certainly isn't the incomings. The forward planning with that seems to be, well, maybe there is a plan there, but we don't approve of it, and it isn't improving the quality of the first team. There's an interesting point that came in earlier, Jonathan. In fact, reply to that one.
Well, I think when you're looking, at spending money and forward planning, something that the club hope to get away with a scattergun approach where they'll sign lots of players for the £2-3 million mark, and they're hoping that they pick up more gems than turds, really. And unfortunately, in the summer window, they picked up a bag of shite, pretty much that none of them have really made the grades, apart from Palma really being the only one who's really consistently knocking down a spot in that first team. And even then, if you were to compare what we had last season in that position in a Jota to Palma, then again, you would have to say that's a downgrade on what we had previously in that position. So there is an element of the board having this vision of wanting to obviously buy players young, sell them on for a profit, look in these obscure markets and hope that they find gems. But there is a time and a place for that. And I think at the moment, when Celtic are in a real title race, and by all accounts, they have had some difficult moments in this first half of the season, being knocked out of the League Cup, potentially, being quite close to being a bit more difference in the Champions League. They weren't too far away from some really positive results there. If they'd been back properly, that might have just given them an edge, particularly in the home game against Lazio is one that sticks out. And then obviously you're looking at the league, and the form was a little bit inconsistent, and it allowed Rangers back into a title race that we were beginning to feel we were running away with just a couple of months ago. So if you're looking at all those factors, now isn't the time for the board to be going out and buying players, from an obscure market that they don't know whether or not are going to be a success in this league, and then hoping they're going to be able to sell them off for big money, because the be-all and end-all is making sure you have the league championship flag at Celtic Park for another season. And I think in order to achieve that and make sure any doubt is removed, is you have to be willing to go out and get the players that Rodgers has identified this time around. And I think Brendan as well needs to be forceful in making sure that that does happen, because as we've discussed on this before, we don't think Brendan necessarily done that the first time around in the summer, and perhaps it was because he felt lucky to be back. Well, I think he's had a bit of an awakening as to where this team is at the moment, and I would be very surprised if he's not got some serious concerns over certain positions and the strength of some of the players in the team as well. So when it comes to forward planning at the moment, it's about making sure that we end up in a position where we end up with the league title secured by the end of the season. And for me, the best way of doing that is to sign ready-made players that can go into the first team and make a difference. And to be honest, I don't even know whether that will mean Brendan, for example, had a little bit more of a knack potentially of going into the actual SPL and plucking players from there. I know there's not perhaps as many big options from there, but you see some of the players being linked. You've got guys like Shanklin's been linked. You've had Miovski being linked up front. I know McKenna doesn't play in the Scottish Premiership just now, but Scott McKenna is another one being linked that's at Nottingham Forest, who obviously does know the league because he's played in it for many years with Aberdeen. So there is signs there, Russell, that perhaps the transfer policy, if any of these rumours are to be believed, is that Brendan may look for players that have a better understanding of what to expect from Scottish football as perhaps players he's going to look at. And I wonder if that's perhaps the better ploy at this point, is bringing in somebody the likes of a Miovski or a Shanklin who can do a job for you domestically. Might not be the most glamorous name, but at least you know what you're getting with them.
Well, yeah, Joe Henry comes in and kind of agrees with you there. He's saying there's no excitement in any of these links at all. I've spoken about this before, and I want to re-emphasise the point. They're also there as a board, not just to make this a fucking Groundhog Day, business that operates like all other businesses sort of that are steady and relatively successful do. The whole point of being in charge of a football club is to provide a very different type of customer base to other customer bases, what they want. And with regards to that, doesn't mean you just bow to every demand. But I tell you what is a bare minimum they should be doing, is providing moments of creativity and imagination for the fans. A bit of fucking romance. Something that gets you going as a fan. That's all been taken out. They have literally been like fucking dementors over the club for years, sucking the joy, sucking the happiness out of what domestically has been a successful period. It's all been done on a backdrop of a bit of lack of trust, frustration at what happens in Europe, a lack of anything, any sort of story that you go, oh, can you believe we got X, Y, and Z? We don't do anything like that anymore. Everything's so regimented, it's so boring, it's bland, it's fucking... And it's leading to the actual team, the quality on the park now regress, I think, quite dramatically from where we were this time under Brendan, his first season round, to his first season, if you like. The quality of the squad's nowhere near it. And yet, in that time, we've won 4 trebles. Make it make sense. I mean, that tells you that even though domestically you're having this era of dominance, what we're missing is that the actual product on the park isn't getting any better. The fans aren't getting moments, and moments are so important as a supporter. They're so important. All that joy being taken away from you, no one having any sort of hope, ambition, belief that we're going to go out and sign like we were saying in the summer, for example, maybe to my ridicule now, a KT. inquire about, I know you wouldn't be able to do it now, I get that, but inquiring about a Scott McTominay who looked like he was out the picture on loan, one that really makes you go, wow, fucking hell, I can't believe we managed to get him to Celtic. You don't get that anymore. It's going to end up turning fans away as well eventually, do you know that? Or has the conditioning work where it might turn fans away of my generation and older who have seen Celtic breathe a wee bit and believe Celtic can be what they can in any era, or the new generation has been conditioned now to accept this is what we do. We get domestic bless. Glasgow's green. We do fuck all in Europe because we can't compete, and we don't sign players that can get you excited anymore because we don't have the spondulies to do so. Albeit, this is all done in a backdrop with a never more cash-rich Celtic than we've ever known in the history of the club. That's also pretty mad. And doing that should be ramping more pressure on them to provide you with moments of excitement. Moments, as I say, I'll go back to it, moments of imagination just seems totally lacking to me with them right now. And it is a real source of frustration. Speaking of frustrated, it looks to me, though, like whatever happened at Celtic Park on the 30th of December really has frustrated, baffled, bewildered the deluded element of Scottish football. It's still ongoing, this meltdown. They're trying to say there isn't a meltdown. You see some of the pish on Twitter. I can't be asked for half the back and forth, to be honest with you, from either side. I think a lot of it's all the shite. But you can understand why they are getting the piss ripped out of them right now, the other mob, and they're trying to justify it with, even if we breathe, you say we're having a meltdown. We're not. I think that Willie Collum leak to whoever it was to actually tell what happened, and for some reason, them then thinking that would curry favour or make it look like they'd been mistreated. What happened, from my understanding, was the XFA called Rangers in so they could hear the audio. Rangers agreed. They played the audio back. Rangers accepted it. Rangers leave the room and get in touch with one of their cronies and go, we're no happy with this. But we never told them that. And it all spirals all over again. They have to accept their own shortcomings. And their own shortcomings, you know what, are sometimes a bit more palatable than ours at times, because there's a reason they're behind. They don't have the money that they like to think they have. They're not the Rangers of before who'll be attracting top players. They've signed shite. They had a crap manager for the first 15 games of the season. They've still got his shitey players there. We've still got slightly better. We're exactly where we want to be if you're the boardroom. Slightly better than them. They can't get their head around it. But now it's turning a wee bit dark with all the Willie Collum stuff. Where do you stand on the potential of identifying an individual referee for the second time and it being the same referee and having him nowhere near one team's games, nowhere near the VAR room for one team's games? It's not on, is it?
It's a ridiculous request, and if that is something that they've actually, requested, it should have been kept in private in any event. It's not something that should be getting brought into the public domain, because you just know that's going to incite, a lot of problems with supporters. We all know that there's plenty of nut jobs that are Scottish football fan supporters. We've seen it over the years with the likes of even our own previous manager, Neil Lennon, getting bullets and all sorts sent to him in the post. It doesn't take an awful lot to incite violence from the more extreme end of the supporters groups across Scottish football. When I look at Rangers, I find that whole thing a complete smokescreen. To be honest, that's all it is, and it's worked brilliantly for them, because it's taken all eyes off the fact they weren't good enough yet again to beat Celtic, because all we heard in the build-up to that game was that this was going to be Rangers' time, this was going to be Rangers' moment. I think a lot of Celtic fans had bought into that as well, truth be told, and I was probably quite hesitant going into that game as to whether Celtic could get the job done. But when you actually get down to the nitty-gritty, and games of football have to be played, especially the high-pressure ones, Rangers haven't beaten Celtic in a high-pressure derby match. I don't know how long. I'm not actually sure when the last
Scottish Cup semi-final against Ange.
Cup semi-final. Yeah, that'll be the one. Yeah, so that was what.
Whisper that one though, because he never got anything wrong. But yeah, that was in. They
Yeah.
played. I think we'd had about 8 days rest. They'd had 3, and yet they were
Yes.
fitter than us in extra time. Remember it well.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it was that one. So I mean, even then, that took them extra time to do us over. But yeah, you're looking at it, and they don't tend to win the high pressure games against Celtic. Certainly recently, anyway, it happens once in a blue moon that they win those types of matches. And rather than actually focus on why that continues to happen, what they've chosen to do instead is whip around a backlash against a referee who they already don't like because he's made a few decisions against them, which Willie Collum is actually probably one of the only referees who's actually done that. Ironically, over the past couple of years, has actually had the audacity to give decisions against Rangers, because you've got to remember, I think, the fact that they haven't conceded a penalty until that Kilmarnock game the other week there in so long, and whatever it was, almost 2 years in the league without conceding one, gives Rangers fans this belief that they get all the decisions. It gives them that sense of entitlement, and then they do end up in a position as a club where they're confused when some decisions don't end up going their way. And I think the most baffling thing about that one was it doesn't materially impact the game whatsoever because of the fact it is clearly offside in the build-up. And I'll flip that argument, and I'll tell you something. If the linesman actually does his job in the first instance and puts his flag up, Willie Collum does not have a VAR decision to make. It's the linesman's fault that actually prompts that whole VAR saga. And it's not as if Celtic are coming out and now demanding this linesman's nowhere near a Celtic game. You've got to remember, he also has one in the second half where he wrongly flags on Turnbull, who then is bundled over in the box for a possible penalty as well. So that linesman didn't have a good game either. And the decisions he actually made were more against Celtic than they were for them. So I think if you're looking at the officials, you've got to be honest and say that they aren't very good in Scottish football. We know they aren't very good in Scottish football. Everybody and their dog knows that. Rangers fans were quite happy to defend them up until the other week there when we beat them at Celtic Park. So I don't really buy into the smokescreen. If it does bring about more transparency in the game, I'm all for that, absolutely. If it's going to mean that there's going to be more chances to hear audio commentary of what's going on in the VAR room, I'm all for that. I'd be very open to hearing what's going on when they're making these big calls. I think that's a good step for Scottish football, actually. But where the line has to be drawn is you cannot have a situation where referees are being selected for certain games, but they can't do others because clubs are putting requests in. Because let's face it, there's bad decisions that happen every week in Scottish football. You'll just end up with clubs taking advantage, if that's going to be the case, and saying, well, we don't want this referee because he didn't do us a favour this week. He's given us a terrible decision. And it would go on and on and on. And, I think the SFA were quite right to give a scathing rejection of that. But what will be interesting, Russell, is I think the last time they'd done this to Willie Collum, I think he was then taken off their games for it must have been about a year. I think it was the St Mirren, possibly. He gave a red card incorrectly against a Rangers player. I think it might have been Candeas. And then he wasn't anywhere near a Rangers game for about a year. I'll be interested to see how quickly the SFA insert him back into a Rangers game, because that'll give you an idea as to how strict and no-nonsense approach they're actually going to take with this.
Well, yeah, you're exactly right. And for it to be the second time around for Colin as well, it's just utterly bonkers. I mean, the John Beaton in the Rangers pub after a derby, win for Rangers, cheesing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you look at stuff like that. This guy's now getting vilified yesterday or today, whenever it was, the photo emerged because he spoke at some sort, I'm not even sure, at chapel or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's just mental how far they're willing to take it. And I think the deflection is very much part of it. One of the biggest problems they've got is they hype up, or they allow the hype. They probably plant the seed, slip a tenner into a brown envelope for one of their dodgy media pals, and then they go on this hype train for whoever it is that's in the dugout. And then backfires, they have to blame something else because the hype train, they're still trying to get in full flow and build because they'll have season tickets to sell in 4 months' time without the SPFL trophy in the cabinet. Oh, did I just say that? It is a bit of a farce now, though. And again, the lack of self-awareness in it all. The fucking chance was offside. What you not getting? What do they not understand, these people? It goes back to Willie Collum flags it offside. They then need to check what is called, is it the APP, attacking phase of play? and then it's offside given. I think there's 2 of them offside. Nobody cares. The goal would never have stand in a month of Sundays any other way. The week before, they seem to be gloating at Celtic having conspiracy theories. Oh, look at them, their conspiracy theories. What's transpired since then is, firstly, as you rightfully point out, the record penalty sequence, 74 games, a game away from the world record, and funnily enough, they give one away. It's just so transparent. Do you know what I mean? Nobody can be asked any of that. But I do think that shows a vulnerability about the opposition as well. I appreciate they are your title rivals. You can't do anything about that. But I think there is a vulnerability about that club that they are also showing right now. And that's the sort of things that you want to see if you put the competitive hat on and you look at what is a crucial title running. If they're that fragile when they lose a game that they want to go on about hypothetical goals that could never have stood in a month of Sundays anyway, then that would suggest to me that reality is biting and they want to keep deflecting.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're always going to get an indication of where Rangers were at when they got their first test under Clement. And what's happened is when they've lost that game, none of them have came out looking particularly great. I was interested to see how he'd react to that defeat. And whilst I understand there might have been frustrations over how it was communicated, the VAR decision, that doesn't change the fact that it has no material impact on the game whatsoever. You cannot turn around and say that's had any impact on Rangers' performance, on the end result of the match, and it's just complete and utter deflection tactics at its finest. I think what they're trying to do is build a siege mentality. They always quite like doing that. The whole nobody likes us, we don't care thing, that is something Rangers like to go back to. It's a little comfort blanket they use fairly regularly. But if you're asking me now, if Rangers come back after this break and when they go into trickier games, they had a relatively straightforward one at a home game against Kilmarnock that you'd expect them to be winning. But when they're going to more trickier venues in the second half of the season, and if they get decisions going against them or they don't perform to the levels and they drop points, I'm not sure they've got the stomach for this. I'm not sure they're going to be in a position to manage this very well.
Will the SFA or the officials themselves, will they, though, Jonathan, have the stomach for this as well, where you're getting prevented to do certain aspects of your job, you're missing out on paydays, etc. It's a well-paid part-time gig, refereeing.
Yeah.
We've speculated in the bus that they reckon the fees between 900 to $1,000 per match in the SPFL. I wonder if the more high-profile ones, that's maybe what that represents, that total, as opposed to other ones. But either way, I mean, if you're getting prevented from being able to do your job, and if you're a ref, you're wanting to be in cup finals the same way a player does. You want to be in league deciders. That you're stopping a guy from doing that. Only you're stopping him from doing that based on utter bullshit. But each to their own. We can let them crack on now. There was an interesting comment by Alex earlier. Alex, of course, bought 20 Bhoycie Bus members the other day, Johnson.
Wow.
Very, very kind. So
very generous, very good.
Yeah, very, very generous. We appreciate that. And I'm sure everyone who received one appreciates it as well. Alex was saying, did you hear on Super Scoreboard? Basically, she was asking, I can't find the comment, but she was asking, did you hear on Super Scoreboard? There was a guy saying he's got a pal who's best friends with Jermaine Defoe or something along those lines. And Jermaine Defoe's saying that the reason, Atati was upset is because he is a big target for Ange in January. Atati aside, in that story, whether it's bollocks or not aside, I mean, we can't possibly be looking at the January window with departures on our mind, can we? Other than the excess players, the baggage that we've got in the squad. Certainly not the likes of Atati, O'Reilly, Kyogo, CCV, Callum McGregor. Not that he's going anywhere anyway. But these guys can't be possibly getting viewed upon as potential sales this January. Or are Celtic capable of that? And if they are, what do you think the reaction would be?
Well, I think that's one thing we will hopefully be able to hold on to, all the prized assets. I think Brendan's been on the record saying that none of them will be sold. Now, I know these things can sometimes change and the decisions can be taken out of the manager's hands, but I think if Brendan's saying that, I think he must have had assurances, because he's not going to want to look silly and saying something like that. And then the next week, Matt O'Reilly, for example, ends up off packing his bags and moving down south. So, I mean, I don't think it will happen. I'd like to believe that Celtic will hold on to the best players that they have in this window. And they have to, because they just, as I keep going back to, the squad isn't strong enough as it stands just now. It might be enough to get over the line, but it's leaving a lot to chance with how the squad is at the minute before you even consider the possible selling of any of your better players as well. If one of them was to go, then the fans will rightfully make their voices heard against the board, particularly if that is followed by a lack of transfer activity coming in. I can't see Celtic selling in this window, really. It would need to be something outrageous, I think, for Celtic to even consider it. As you rightfully say, they've got enough money in the bank to manage perfectly fine. There is no real incentive for Celtic to sell in January when the league is on such a knife edge. Potentially, if we had kept our distance from Rangers and hadn't lost those couple of games in the build-up to the derby, it may have been slightly different. We might have looked at it a bit more and thought we could possibly get away with getting rid of one if a really good bid came in. I cannot see it happening in January whatsoever, with the position we find ourselves in the league, and also the fact that, whether we like it or not, Celtic have been used to winning trebles of late. So now the Scottish Cup, I think, almost takes on added importance, certainly in the minds of the younger generations as well, Russell. And the fact that, when we were growing up, you're probably happy just winning the league. A league and cup double was a really good season, and a treble was quite frankly unheard of until Brendan Rodgers really came in the first time around and made it something that we just got used to. But now I think almost that Celtic fans are at a point, because we've had so much success, that just winning the league title would probably look at that and think that's not enough in some ways. I think there would be an element of the fan base that would turn around and expect a cup to be secured alongside the league title. And so that does mean that the Scottish Cup also has that added importance now, and it's been elevated in that way because of the success we've had over the past, 6-7 years or so. So if we're looking at it like that, there's absolutely no way you can afford to get rid of one of your top players. It has to be the total opposite. Celtic have to be going out and actually bringing in top players that can go straight in to complement the likes of a Kyogo, an O'Reilly, a CCV, whoever it may be, in whatever positions they identify. The difficulty they have is trying to find the players of that quality that Brendan wants this time. And that's the key word for me. It has to be ones that Brendan wants, not ones the board want, ones that he wants, that are also going to be available in January. Because I don't dispute January is a tougher window, I think, to do player business and transfers in than the summer. I would agree with the board to a point at that. However, you cannot hide behind that excuse every single January, and you certainly can't hide behind that excuse when needs must. And, at the moment, needs must, because Celtic have a squad that is full of players, but so many of them are nowhere near fit for purpose. There's probably about 7 or 8 players on our books we could comfortably get rid of tomorrow, and we wouldn't even bat an eyelid. We'd be quite happy to see the back of some of them, truth be told. So Celtic have to be looking on the front foot, and there's absolutely, for me, no danger that they'll end up selling any of their prized assets in this window, because quite frankly, it just wouldn't be acceptable. It wouldn't go down well with the fans, and I think the board are savvy enough to know that as well.
Yeah, well said. I agree with that. But speaking of unhappy reactions, Jonathan, will it be you or me with an unhappy reaction in the next 10 minutes? Because the main man arrives donning a cracking retro bus atop there. Phil McGinley,
Right.
Happy New Year to you, mate.
Happy
Good to have
New
you
Year
on the
as well.
bus.
This is the
Happy
first show
New Year
we've done
to
in
you, Phil.
2024.
Aye, mate, I believe so.
It's all a
It's great.
blur after Christmas and New
Oh,
Year's.
I know.
Who knows anymore?
Yeah, I think the last one we did together was when I made my late arrival on the Friday feeling.
Oh, right, okay.
That
So
was fun.
Yeah, that was just before the Rangers, because that would have been last year. Yes, that was indeed.
Back to doing my usual January detox now. Regular viewers of the bus over the years will know I take my drinking very seriously, Jonathan. Therefore, the only way to be able to keep drinking, the only way to stay in the game is to play the game. And in January, we can play the game a bit. So Want a bit of sparkling water in the old penthouse tonight? I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I like it. Anyway, Phil, I better be giving me brain cells because what is the score on the doors for the old Sutton Death?
Well,
I've been pulling it back, have I not? Have I won the last two?
Well, amazingly, I had this plan of doing it as 2 separate seasons and having like a break in the middle, but we've had an impromptu break, so it's actually kind of worked out that way. Yeah, it has. Yeah. So the score at the halfway stage this season was Jonathan 9, Russell 5, so 4 points in it, guys. You were pulling it back. You were 6 points behind. So you've won the last two, Russell. You have won the last two. So you're on a bit of a streak here. So
I can do this.
Home's very back to the still got plenty of time to go. Still got plenty of time.
Jonathan, even you're wearing a t-shirt donning my name.
Mm-hmm. That's just to make you feel better.
You're cheering me on. I'm cheering on my brother. We've got the t-shirts a wee bit messed up tonight, but no, bring it on, man. Need to get
good stuff.
Need to get into it, man. Just need to get into it. If I can get it down to 3, we'll see a crack. He will start to wobble.
Well, I mean, there's every chance I could ask for a new quizmaster. I'm not going to rule out writing to the head of Bhoycie Bus headquarters and requesting the audio footage of any disputed decisions on answers. That's always in my back pocket.
All right, well, there you go, Jonathan. Luckily, I am the SFA that we need to write to, so I can safely say that will get ripped up and chucked in the bin, but you crack on.
Very topical. I like that one. That was good there.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, so obviously comments off. Do you need a refresher of the rules, guys? Because it's been that long. It's good to go.
You can do a wee refresher for the audience if you like.
Sure. Okay, so it is Sutton Death. It is a penalty shootout style competition between the brothers. Boys, they have 5 shots each, as in you would have in a penalty shootout. So I've got a question with multiple answers. It might be Celtic themed, it might be general football themed, it could be, but as long as it's something to do with football anyway, most of the time though, it's about Celtic. And I'll give you a spoiler already. Tonight is a Celtic question because it's been a while.
You've found more though. You've found more than you thought you were going to, haven't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
I think last summer you were like, I'm never going to have enough questions. I think you found more Celtic ones this year.
The viewers, I think, have chipped in though, haven't they?
Some viewers have chipped in, which you can do. Drop me a message on Twitter if you've got a good trivia question. As long as it's got at least 10 answers, it can be used. So that's all I need. Yeah,
so get your messages into Filberto Silva on the old Twitter or at the Bhoycie Bus. I don't receive those. Phil runs that page as well, so don't worry. I won't be getting first dibs.
Okay, so let's get cracking then. So yeah, Russell, you won the last point. So do you want to go first or second?
Do I want the guess? I want the guess. I'll go second.
Sticking to tradition then. Okay then. I've been sitting on this question for a while, so you'll understand when I say it. You'll be like, oh, why is he going back there? But you'll understand, because I was going to use this weeks ago, but we haven't done one in a while. So, lads, recently we saw Celtic lose at Kilmarnock, a bad day at the office to say the least. So let's concentrate on a good result we had at Kilmarnock. In April 2012, Celtic went to Rugby Park and won 6-0. They became league champions in the process. Can you name any of the 18-man match day squad that day? 11 started and there were 7 on the bench.
2012.
April 2012. Neil Lennon's first title as Celtic manager.
Okay, I'll start us off. I'll go Gary Hooper.
Yes, Gary Hooper. He scored that day as well.
Charlie Mulgrew.
Mulgrew, yep. He was brilliant that day.
Yeah, he scored as well, did he not? Fraser Foster.
Yeah, of course. Fraser Foster is correct.
Joe Ledley.
Yeah, Joe Ledley. He scored a goal as well that day.
He did.
Good Joe Ledley. Georgios Samaras.
Samaras was in the squad that day, yes indeed.
Anthony Stokes.
Anthony Stokes was a substitute that day, so he's in the match day squad, yep.
Scott Brown.
Scott Brown, of course, captain. He was playing, yep. Okay.
James Forrest.
I was waiting for James Forrest to come up.
No!
I was hoping Jonathan might have said it because that's his go-to answer, and I could have said the streak is over. But no, Russell, you fell into the trap. James Forrest is a wrong answer. Sensationally.
Silly cookie.
Oh. Now, be
I knew
truthful,
that. I knew
Jonathan,
Jamesy
would you
wouldn't
have
let
had...
me down.
Oh, right, okay. I was going
I
to say...
didn't have Forrest written down.
Oh, there
I
you
knew you
go.
didn't play that game. I knew you didn't play that game.
How did you know that? Oh, fuck off.
So, Jonathan, as it stands, you can win 5-4 here by getting
didn't
this
even get my
one
guess.
right.
I've got a guess. I think he would have been in the squad. I'm going to say Chris Commons.
Yeah, Chris Commons was playing that day. Yeah, he started. So Jonathan just edges you back a wee bit there, Russell.
No,
and
he
he-
has.
Oh, Jamesy looks after me. Me and Jamesy are bestest pals on this game.
The irony of it, I say you always go for him, and you've not went for him tonight, and he's still won you a point. He's still done it, Jonathan.
He is your boy, eh?
He is my boy. He can have as long as he
What's
wants.
James Forrest doing that day?
Must have been injured. He's got to have been. So I'll
Yeah,
tell you
but
the rest
he's
of the
done
squad,
that.
right? I'll tell you the rest of the squad.
Yeah, but
Kelvin
he was
Wilson.
Trainers releases, not Velcro or something like that. Fuck's sake.
But yeah, the rest of the team: Kelvin Wilson, Glenn Luvins, who scored that day, Adam Matthews, Ki Sung Young, Lucas Zaluska, always a good guess in these types of squads, substitute goalie, Chad Uri, and then the really tough ones that I had all the clues for, some obscure ones here. Andre Blackman, remember him? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ibrahim Rabiu, Nigerian
Oh
midfielder
my
that only played a
God.
handful of games. One of the most pointless loan deals in our history, Pavel Brojek. He was in the squad. And the final one got on that day, and he got an assist for Joe Ledley. Philip Twarzik was the final one. There.
Fucking hell, that was tricky, wasn't it?
If it got to the clues, that would have been the 4 players that I had clues for, because they were all stinkers, a lot of them. But yeah, James Forrest, ironically, gets Jonathan the point despite not being in the squad. There we go. Something. New year, same old traditions.
He could be like John Kennedy. He could be at the club for as long as he wants. He could move into coaching. He could do it. I'd let him stay as long as he wants.
Yes, very good. Back to the drawing board. Still a half a season to go, I'll be fine.
Yeah, still plenty of time. It was a 5
Plenty
point.
of time to work this out. He's far too confident down there.
Yeah. And I just know if it's going to be a Celtic question, it's like one of the rules of Sutton Death. If it's a Celtic question, I tend to win them. You better hope Phil's got a lot of general football questions lined up.
Oh God, you're calling my bluff and you're spot on. Anyway, right, we will call it there. That is 25 past 8. That'll do for a wee transfer. You know, it's the window. The shows always get a wee bit short. There's no football to actually talk about, unless you want to talk about refereeing decisions from however many days ago that was.
I'm all refereed out. I've seen in the last few days. Oh, God.
Obviously, the judge is on holiday. So sadly, I don't think we'll be doing any one-to-ones with him unless he fancies another spell on the beach coming on live. That was brilliant on Sunday. I was loving that. Absolutely brilliant. But yes, we will still have the usual TNF that'll be on this week. Friday feeling back this week, Phil?
Well, there's no game preview, but I could do something like a sort of looking back on the half season that we've had so far, of any plus points, low points, whatever. Just to have a look back at it, because we've got 5-6 months of football to talk about previously. So,
as I am detoxing, I'm happy to jump on with you, mate. So,
and then the next Friday after that, we're previewing Bucky Thistle in the Scottish Cup. That'll be
that's glamour.
That is glamour. That is a glamour tie.
Yeah, I'll be back on the baby just for that. But no, right, that'll do us for the night. Thanks very much to everyone who's been in the live chat. Remember, give us a wee like, share, all that good stuff. Thanks, Phil. Jonathan, well done, mate. Nice t-shirt. See you later. Keep it on the board.